convince you in thinking...
Ellen's fight for the separation of state and church seemed wholly commendable. The trouble is, she doesn't stop there.
I mean, our nation, as you know, Rod, is one of the most religious nations on earth. They've got their little logo on our money. They've got their pledge in our pledge that this is one nation under a God. When they get them there...
It wasn't long before Ellen's sensible, rational approach had descended into vilifying religious beliefs.
The ordinary Christian will do, for the most part, what they're not called followers for nothing.
So do you think that's stupid?
I would never, ever attack someone, make an ad hominem attack against somebody. I think what the ideas...
Ellen, you just said they'll follow whatever rubbish you put in front of them.
You want to be rude about it? That's being rude about it. I'm trying to be polite about it. But what I will say is that their ideas are stupid. The beliefs are stupid. The theology is stupid. And boy, that half an hour goes fast, doesn't it, folks? I want to thank Rod Little for being a guest on the show and his crew here for being in the studio. Thanks for watching us on The Atheist Viewpoint.
What you get when you talk to some atheists about religion isn't simply a dispassionate argument about the facts. Sooner or later, you'll get a vomiting out of contempt. As if it's not enough that belief in a divine being might be improbable, but that it's actually laughable.
It's the same when you speak to a fervent believer, that terrible certitude that he's right and you are wrong. And atheism has its triumphant evangelists, many living right here in the English countryside.
They are entering the typical habitat of Britain's fundamentalist atheists. Quiet country lane on the fringes of a cathedral city. Agreeable cottages, privet and Leylandii.
Peter Atkins is a professor at Oxford University. He believes God is an unnecessary human creation.
I can see that there's an argument for that. Give me your views on the existence or otherwise of God.
Well, it's fairly straightforward. There isn't one. There's no evidence for one, no reason to believe that there is one. And so I don't believe that there is one. And I think it's rather foolish of people to think that there is one.
Isn't there a terrible arrogance in that certitude?
What's wrong with arrogance if you're right?
I don't know that I mean, it's not quite sartorially your style, but...
For Richard Dawkins, being an atheist means replacing irrational, faith-based understanding with science and the scientific method.
Very nice. The science has standards of peer review, standards of testing, things have to be verified. It's not enough for somebody to say, I believe that so-and-so, or it feels good to me. You wouldn't take very seriously a scientist who said, an asteroid hit the Earth because I just feel that way, or it has been privately revealed to me that an asteroid hit the Earth.
The atheist would argue that the scientific method gives us all we need in order to make sense of the world, and that science, with its rational explanations based upon observable evidence, isn't merely a superior tool for understanding, but the only tool. In other words, it is the way, the truth, and the light. Now, does that sound familiar?
The problem for atheists is that science may not be as far away from religion as you might imagine. This is the Fermilab in Batavia, Illinois, a beautiful early 1970s temple to science. Its job is to tell us how the universe began, although, like the Latin or Greek of early religious texts, not in a language many would understand. Rocky Kolb is one of their elders, a man at the top of his profession who knows more about the origin of the universe than almost anyone else.
So these are all the controls for the linear accelerator.
Fermilab contains the most powerful particle accelerator in the world. Inside it, particles are smashed together at velocities close to the speed of light to try to replicate the moment when the universe came into being. This is science at its most magnificent and exalted.
It is 6.28 kilometers in circumference, and matter and antimatter collide at two places around the ring. When they collide, they produce the same conditions we believe were present a millionth of a second after the bang.
After the bang.
After the bang. And we recreate the conditions as close to the time of the bang as we can do, using the results of...
When asked what happened after the Big Bang, Rocky could tell me down to the minutest detail. But of course, when it came to what happened before, he ran into trouble.
Final understanding of the laws of
Do you
nature.
think it's also interesting that your ambition at the moment cannot reach beyond that 100 millionth of a second after the Big Bang? You can't go before there. Why can't you?
Oh, well, we can certainly speculate about what happened before that.
But it's speculation, informed scientific speculation, but speculation.
It is informed scientific speculation, that's correct.
Does any of what you've discovered actually preclude the existence of a creator?
No, there's nothing to preclude it, and yet there's nothing that suggests the necessity of it.
Which option you take then, God or no God, is a matter of choosing something for which there is no scientific proof either way.
And it would be out of key.
Sir John Polkinghorne is one of the great theoretical physicists of the 20th century. He's now retired from science and is an Anglican priest.
In that respect.
He believes that God stands apart from physics.
I don't think that God is scientifically knowable, or the non-existence of God would be scientifically knowable. I think that the character of the world is supportive of the idea that there is a divine mind and purpose behind it, but I don't think it can amount to proof that that's so. I think that none of us have access to knock down proofs of that character, whether we're theists or whether we're atheists.
What do you say to pretty eminent scientists who have a belief in God?
That they're wrong, first of all.
Well, you don't, again, let's go back. You don't actually think that, do you? Because you cannot...
Well, I think they're wrong.
You cannot quite...
I can think that.
You can think that,
And
yes.
you might ask, what is the psychology behind my thinking that? That is an interesting meta question and so on. But if you like, it's a sadness. That clearly the reason that these very eminent people, some of whom no doubt you've been talking to, are only half scientists, really.
Some atheists argue that scientists who believe in God are guilty of dualism. That is, they understand the world in two different, contradictory ways, one which is scientific and rational, the other of which is intuitive and involves a belief in the supernatural. But I don't see that as a contradiction. In fact, that balance strikes me as being at the very essence of what it is to be human. You cannot live by cold logic alone.
Cold logic and science can't actually disprove God, but fervent atheists nevertheless feel their position is the only rational one.
I don't think you can disprove God, as you can't disprove fairies and unicorns. And so I suppose it is right that it's a kind of scientific purism that makes me say I can't disprove God, therefore I can't be an absolute 100% atheist. I mean, I treat God as the same as fairies and unicorns.
But you are 100% really, aren't you?
I'm the same as I am with fairies.
Another problem for atheists is that modern physics, far from doing away with the idea of God, may yield a glimpse of his hand at work.
He believes, of course...
Bernard Carr is a cosmologist and studies how